Mike, we are here. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about a great thing today. We're talking about values, and values are an amazing thing. When you understand them, this will absolutely improve the quality of your life and enable you to motivate other people in ways you've never done before.
Right. And the reason that we're doing this video in this format, we're actually doing it in like a mini workshop format. So what'll happen is we're gonna teach you some stuff. Then we're going to ask you to pause the video, do a little bit of homework so that at the end of this video, probably let's say it takes us 10 minutes. With the pauses, it might take you 20. You will have a list of values that matter to you, which we'll explain in an order so that you can make better decisions in your life. There we go.
Correct. So what the heck are values anyway?
Let's start with that.
In NLP terms, values are something called closely held criteria. These are things that are important to us, but values aren't just things like, do you like malt vinegar or, ketchup on fries? Values are things that are deeply effective to you. Things like, what love means to you or what you want to do for a living. They will control a lot of your behavior at a very, very deep level.
Okay, so we wouldn't say like, oh, I value my iPhone.
Well, yeah, that is a criteria, but it's not closely held.
Right.
Because if your life was threatened, you wouldn't say, well, I'm going to die for this iPhone because your life is more important, right?
Right.
So
life, it'd be a bigger value.
Yes.
We'll get to this.
We'll get to that. But what do values do? Values run beneath the surface of our awareness, and you're going to bring them out of the hidden part of your mind and understand them consciously, because values enable you to make decisions immediately based on these unconscious things that you're not really thinking about. So you don't have to, every time you get an offer, oh, do you want to go out for supper tomorrow night? Well, I'm supposed to be working, and try to rationalize it. No, you'll say, yeah, I can make it. You'll make quick decisions based on the things that are deeply important to you.
That's a really good point. They'll be unconscious.
Right.
They'll be automatic. Like if you value your health and somebody proposes doing something that's really stupid for your health, and you automatically go, no, not interested.
Correct, because health is so important to you, or should be at any rate. Yes.
Okay.
So values will tend to be a single word, and they're often nominalizations, maybe almost always. And a nominalization is, again, in NLP terms, it's a noun, like tree or book or whatever, but it's a noun that has no physical substance. You can't put it in a wheelbarrow.
iPhone can go in a wheelbarrow,
Yeah, so it's not a value.
Not a...
But something like power, friendship, love, understanding, all of these can be values, or learning, things like that, because they're one word that takes in a huge scope of stuff, and it will be stuff that is unique to you. So when two people can have the same value, but they won't mean the same thing. They'll have different rules. So we'll get to the rules in a minute.
And okay, so then just so people who are hearing it for the first time, if someone goes, oh, well, I value my iPhone, you could say something like, well, what does it give you? And I go, well, I can communicate. Okay, so communication becomes maybe my starting point.
Right.
And then we have to work through the chain of what does that? Do you want to go through like
yes, well,
ends?
You know what a value is, because when you ask, what does it give you? And you say, well, it gives me. So we'll give an example. Person says, my value is family. And you say, what does family give you? And they say, well, it gives me love. And you say, okay, what does love give you? Love just gives me love. You've now bottomed out. You found the value behind family by finding what it gives you. So the things on the stepping stones on the way, rather, like family or friendship or whatever, those are called
means values.
Means values, the means to get the real value. The end value is what you're looking for.
And there's only one end value at the end of all of the chain of questions. So if somebody said, what does love give you? And you didn't go, well, actually, just love. Somebody else might say, well, love gives me significance.
Significance, right.
That could be what it ends up being.
Sure.
Right? So it's personal to you. That's the key.
As far as I know, there's only one value that can be a means or an end.
Yeah, we argue about this all
money.
the time.
That's money. Because what does money give you? Well, it gives me freedom. Well, money isn't the value. Some people say money gives me money. To them, money in and of itself is the value.
I still struggle with that, because I still feel like they're hiding the real truth. That money still gives them
sounds like
something like significance or whatever. But yeah, suspicion is a good one. All right.
So anyway, let's clarify it a little further. There's two kinds of values. There are toward values that pull you forward.
Yes.
And there are away from values, things you attempt to avoid in life. And typically people just go after the toward values, figuring out what they are, because that'll control a lot of your life. When we get a list of your values, the top 2 or 3 will be the ones that are most important to you. And we'll learn how to hierarchize them in a couple of minutes' time. We'll be going into that. So let's talk about, how do you even find out what your values are? Well, you're going to pause the video in a moment.
Yeah, when we say pause,
pause.
Do the work to get the
5 seconds pause. You can come back, but stop your video. Not yet. But you're going to ask yourself, what's important to me in life? and just what comes to mind. Don't think it through too much. Just get a list. And you might say family, you might say friendship, you might say security, adventure, freedom, empowerment, anything. Get a list of about 4 or 5.
Shelter, you could be saying anything.
Anything. And then keep asking, what does that give me? What does that give me? Until you get the end value. Do get about 4 or 5 of them, pause the video, and then come back.
So you're going to go off, you're going to make a list of what do I value, answer instantly, and then for each value, what does that give me? Get an answer, keep asking yourself that question until you get to the end. So I value shelter. What does that give me? It gives me security. Okay, what is
safety
security?
or something?
Yeah, whatever the end is, after you keep asking yourself, what does that give me? It bottoms out. And you're saying do that for like 4 or 5 values.
Very, very much.
So
very much, let's say that again. Much of the time, 4 or 5 will be what you'll get. If you only get 2 or 3, that's okay. You might get 9. It doesn't matter.
And it might take you like
you.
5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So pause the video now and then come back. And we're back.
Yes, we are. So you've got your list. Now guess what you're going to do? Take a break. Go do something else for a couple of minutes. Make a cup of coffee or something, and then do it again and get another list. You're going to tack on the bottom of the first list, because when you take a break, you'll come up with some more values after doing that break. And amazingly, some of your most important values will show up in the second list, not the first. It's like doing the process stirs all this stuff up. You take a break and your unconscious says, remember this one, don't forget this one.
Yeah.
And you'll get a second list, but just tack it on the end of the first list and come back again.
It's kind of like going to the grocery store when you think you know your grocery list, and then you get there and go, oh, I forgot to put this on the list. So you're going to go and take another 5 minutes and then come back. Okay, we're back.
You got one long list now. It'll be a different length for everybody. So you may have 5 or 6, you may have 20. It doesn't matter. Now you're going to compare them with each other. So say at the top of the list, and we'll just do 3 to show you the process. Say it's security, freedom, and love.
Right. So you have security, freedom, love in order.
So you say, what do I value most, security or freedom? Just 2 of them. Now, or you could say, if I could only have one of these, which one would it be? That's another way of asking. So you say, well, without security, I couldn't live. Security is most important to me. You say, okay, so that's your number 1 now. Now you go down the list with security and say, the next one's love. What's most important, security or love? Well, love's more important to me than security. Okay, so now you got love at the top, then you got security, and then you got freedom under that.
Right, so you're putting them in
a hierarchy,
simply by competing the winner against the next on the list.
And that starts making your second list, which is now the first list, in order of importance, with the most important at the top. So go and do that, and then come back.
All right.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. All right. So you should now have a list of your ends values in order of importance. So you've sorted them, right?
Now, here's where this is.
Before we go to the next step, let me just make sure, because in case you need to pause this and go redo it, or if you got messed up, when you're doing the competing of, love versus freedom or whatever, sometimes people are going to get this impression like, well, how do I rank them? They're totally different. It doesn't matter. Your gut impression, what feels most important. Yes, you value both of them. No problem. It's just a question of your unconscious response.
That's a very important
Which one
point.
feels like it's the winner. So if you need to redo that, and if you were misunderstanding it, do it and then come back. But then let's continue on with what next?
Okay. So now this is what's going to personalize it for you, because you and another person, it's unlikely, but you could have an identical list of values, but you're still unique individuals. Here's how you personalize it. You now determine what are the rules for each of these values. So you're starting with your first one. Let's say it's freedom. And you say, what are my rules for freedom? How do I know I have freedom?
Yeah, you might say, well, I don't have to wake up to an alarm clock because I'm self-employed. I work for me. That might be it. But for someone else, what might
someone might say, I know I have freedom when I have $100,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
It could be, I can vacation whenever I want. So you're going to get your rules for. You don't even have to do it with all of them. Do it with the top 3, because my experience has been the top 3 will run 90% of what's happening.
Pareto's principle, right?
Yeah, well,
your
80-20
rule,
Okay, so that's your next thing. Ask, how will you know when you have it? And you can even be more specific. If you're an NLP person, you can say, what will I see, hear, and feel when I have that value? And the reason this is important is it shows our uniqueness. Tony Robbins gave a great example. He said, your word might be something like success. and you ask two different people what their rules are. They have success as their main value. One guy says, I know I'm a success when I'm running 3 multinational companies.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to be hard to hit. And the other person says, I know I'm a success, or I'm successful when I can get out of bed every morning in good health. Isn't that interesting? So the rules are totally different for the same value.
And at different points in your life, things are going to change, which we're going to get to, actually.
Yes, we are.
Are we going there now?
Okay.
No. So
write down your rules.
Write down your, you'll take another few minutes break. Top 3 or so values only. How will you know when you have X, whatever that value is? So pause and then come back. Okay.
Welcome back. Now, part 2. Now we're going to look at your away from values, the things you want to avoid in life. So you're going to take all the time you need and do exactly the same thing with the break after getting a few, whatever. The list may not be that long, but you want to find out, what do you attempt to avoid in life? Whether it's successful or not is irrelevant.
And you're not looking at your towards values at all here.
It's nothing to do with that.
Put those away.
Get a new sheet of paper.
What are you moving away from?
And you'll find it'll be things like humiliation, pain, illness, whatever it is. And
pain, fear, embarrassment.
Loneliness.
Yeah.
Bad music.
Yeah,
well, that's not a value. That's just a preference. So get your away from values and find out the rules for each one.
Yeah,
and then come back. So do the whole process, take a break in between, come back at your second half of the away from values, then get the rules for all of them, just like you did for the toward values. And this will take you a little while, and then come back.
The evidence criteria in this case is, how do you know when you have the thing you don't want, right?
Correct.
Not when you're away from it, but like, how do I know when I'm embarrassed?
Or how would I know?
How would I know when I'm feeling embarrassed? How would I know when I'm feeling lonely?
And it won't always be feeling. So it could be, visual as well. When I see nobody in my house, I know that I'm alone. So
we're doing the 2 pauses all in one here. They're going to make the first list of 3 or 4 or whatever.
Get another glass of water.
Then go take a break, shake it off, then go do it again. So you have your full, complete list, and then come back, right?
Yes.
All right.
See you in a minute.
And we're back.
And I'm sure it wasn't a minute. It must have taken you a considerable amount of time. Now, when you have these 2 lists, this tells you all kinds of stuff about yourself. It's quite an interesting thing.
Are they ranking the away from values?
Yes, you're going to rank the away from values too. I'm presuming you've done that already. But because we're mostly focusing on the toward values here, you know exactly how to do the away from values. Just do the same thing you did with the toward values, and this will give you greater insights. Now, one of the things you'll find deeply empowering here is your values will enable you to motivate yourself, or you can
others.
Motivate someone else if you know their values. I'll give you a classic example here. Let's say there's a cruise that you want your best friend to go on with you, and you've had great vacations together, but your top value is adventure, and your friend's top value is safety. So because it's adventure, you're a risk taker, and you say, "Oh, you're going to love this cruise.
We can jump off the back of the boat.
Jump off the back of the ship.
Try to swim and catch
submarines." You can say, we're going through some pirate-infested waters. We're going to go up the Amazon. They got boa constrictors that climb on the boat. You're thinking this is fantastically
and your buddy's
motivating.
like,
"Are you out of your frickin' mind?" Because in order to motivate your friend, you're going to say things like, "This ship has 2 captains,
6 doctors on board,
6 doctors. It's a full operating
room.
Everything is secure. They got giant hoses to drive pirates away. It has been ranked the #1 safe cruise in the world." Your friend's going, "Book me. How do I get on this?" Because we tend to attempt to motivate people using our own values. Now, one of my values is safety and security, and it used to be my #1. It isn't anymore, and we'll go into that some other time. But when I was at an entertainment conference, we were attempting, my wife and I, who was working in the conference with me, to motivate university and college buyers who were buying other hypnosis shows. And I was appealing to my values. I had these things printed up. Stop in red. Before you book a hypnosis show, do you know how dangerous it can be if people aren't skilled? Didn't do anything. Didn't work at all because nobody cared.
What they care about is a successful show that entertains
or making money for them or whatever.
That people say good things about so they feel good. It's exactly.
Now, so anyway, you know what to do with all of this. Appeal to values that will motivate you. So when you want to make some change in your life, look at your top values and think, how can I use these to motivate myself? Switch to English, to motivate myself. And when you're moving towards a value, it's even more powerful if you're moving away from one of the others at the same time.
Yeah, you get that
opposition of opposites. So move towards what you want and away from what you don't want by considering all these aspects. Now, the final point here, and apart from everything we've said, this is very, very powerful. Please make sure you do all this stuff.
Remember this. This is going to be a big one.
When something changes in your life, positive or negative, a big change. You win $250,000, or you get a windfall of some kind. Somebody gives you a property in Arizona, or
you get laid off from your job. You get a new job.
Or
you have a child.
Have your feet amputated for diabetes, or whatever it is. I mean, God forbid. Big changes often will have a ripple effect through all of your values, away from and towards. So check in again and see what's happening.
Redo the exercise.
Redo it.
Recheck where your values are.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So if you do that, and you remember to do that every once in a while, when major life changes happen, good or bad, your values may realign. And by having that focus list of, oh, these are my top 3 towards values, these are my away from values, we can keep those in our reticular activating system by reviewing them every once in a while.
Yep.
And that will automatically help us move towards the things we want, away from the things we don't want, which is the whole point of the Brain Software
The entire point.
Syndicate, to have a better life.
And to have a much better life.
Right.
So check in with your values occasionally. Get them all figured out in advance, and realize this will give you an insight as to who you are and how you function.
Thanks once again, and good night.